He hadn't eaten all day. Yet when he saw the hungry couple shivering in the rain, he gave them his only pizza. He never imagined what would happen the next morning. The rain hammered down over the city. Streetlights flickered, their dim glow reflecting on the shiny black asphalt. The few people still outside hurried with umbrellas, heads bent, trying to escape the storm. But Daniel walked alone, his shoulders hunched, his torn jacket plastered to his thin frame. Water slid down his hair, dripping into his tired eyes, but he kept going. He had only one goal tonight: reach the abandoned warehouse. He called home with the small box of food in his hands. Daniel hadn't eaten all day. The hunger gnawed at him so fiercely that every restaurant smell in the air made his stomach twist. He had worked since morning, lifting crates at the market, cleaning a garage, anything that would earn a few coins. Yet most people had brushed him off, and some had even cursed at him for loitering. By nightfall, his total earnings were barely enough for half a pizza from a rundown stall near the station. It wasn't much, but to Daniel, it was survival. He clutched the warm box as if it were treasure. His lips curved in the faintest smile, imagining the first bite after an empty day. Just a little further, he whispered to himself, his voice drowned by the rain. Then, at the corner of a deserted bus shelter, he noticed them. An old man and woman sat close together on a cold bench. Their clothes were soaked, their bodies trembling. The man coughed into his fist, while the woman rubbed her arms, shivering violently. Their faces looked pale under the streetlight, drawn tight by exhaustion and hunger. There was no food near them, no bag, no umbrella. Only two weary souls trying to survive the storm. Daniel froze. The pizza in his hand suddenly felt heavy, almost burning. His stomach growled, but his gaze wouldn't leave the couple. They didn't beg. They didn't even notice him at first. They just sat there, silent and hopeless. The woman finally lifted her eyes. She gave him the faintest smile, more like an apology for being seen in such misery. Daniel swallowed hard. His chest tightened. He'd walk past, pretend he hadn't noticed. Nobody would blame him. He was starving too, but his feet betrayed him. He stepped closer, opened the box with shaking fingers, and held it out. The old man shook his head, refusing. The woman's eyes filled with tears. But Daniel pressed the box toward them, whispering, "Please, eat this." They accepted with trembling hands, clutching the warm slices as if he'd given them life itself. Daniel didn't wait for thanks. He turned away quickly, his body shivering harder without the comfort of the food. That night, in the leaking corner of his warehouse, Daniel slept with an empty stomach. He thought he had lost the only thing keeping him alive. But somewhere in the storm, unseen eyes had been watching. His life was about to change forever. The rain had stopped by morning, but the city streets were still wet, glistening like a mirror beneath the pale light of dawn. The air smelled of damp, concrete and smoke from food stalls, beginning to open for another day. Inside the abandoned warehouse, Daniel stirred on his thin sheet, the sound of dripping water tapping into a rusty tin beside him. His stomach clenched painfully. Hunger was a cruel alarm clock. He rubbed his eyes, sat up, and for a brief second, the memory of last night came back. The couple's trembling hands clutching the pizza, the woman's tearful smile. Daniel pressed a hand to his empty stomach and whispered, "At least someone ate." He thought the day would pass like any other, begging for odd jobs, struggling for coins, dodging angry stall owners. But before he could rise, he heard something unusual. Knock, knock, knock. Daniel froze. Nobody ever came here. The warehouse was forgotten, its entrance hidden by broken boards and weeds. He sat still, heart thudding. Maybe it was just the wind. Then the knocking came again, louder, deliberate. Cautiously, Daniel crept toward the door, his bare feet making no sound on the cold concrete. He pressed his ear against the wood. "Who's there?" He asked softly, his voice hoarse from sleep and hunger. No answer, only silence, followed by a third knock, steady, patient. With trembling fingers, Daniel pulled the board aside. His eyes widened. Standing outside was a man he had never seen before. Tall, in a dark coat that looked far too expensive for this part of the city. His hair was neat despite the damp air, and in his hand he carried a black umbrella, droplets sliding from its edge. His eyes studied Daniel sharply, as though he had been expecting him. "Daniel?" the stranger asked. Daniel's throat tightened. "Why, yes." The man's expression softened, almost a smile, but not quite. "I saw what you did last night." Daniel's breath caught. His mind flashed back to the old couple, the pizza, the rain. How could this stranger know? "You gave away your only meal," the man continued, "even when you had nothing." "That is rare." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to feel proud or foolish. "They needed it more," he whispered. The man nodded as if Daniel had confirmed something important. Then, to Daniel's shock, he reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. "I want to offer you something." Daniel stared. The envelope looked thick, sealed with care. His first thought was money, but why? Who was this man? "Come with me," the stranger said, his tone calm but commanding. "Your life doesn't have to stay this way." Daniel hesitated. Every instinct told him not to trust strangers, especially ones who appeared out of nowhere with promises. Yet there was something in the man's gaze, not pity, not arrogance, but certainty. "Who are you?" Daniel finally asked, voice low. The man's answer was brief, almost like a challenge. "Someone who believes you deserve a chance. But you'll have to trust me." Before Daniel could respond, thunder rumbled in the distance. The stranger extended his hand, waiting. Daniel looked at it, torn between fear and hope. His heart pounded. Whatever choice he made now, his life would never be the same again. Daniel stared at the stranger's outstretched hand, his heart pounding like the rain against the city's rooftops the night before. Trust was dangerous. He had learned that the hard way. People had lied, cheated, and stolen from him more times than he could count. And yet, something in this man's eyes kept Daniel frozen, an unsettling mixture of authority and sincerity. Finally, with hesitation, Daniel placed his trembling hand into the stranger's. The grip was firm, but not crushing, steadying Daniel as if to say, "You're safe now." "Good," the man said simply. "Come with me." Daniel followed him out into the early morning. The streets were waking up, vendors setting up stalls, stray dogs barking in alleys. To anyone else, this might look like an ordinary walk through the city. But for Daniel, each step felt like crossing an invisible line, leaving behind the only life he had ever known. The stranger led him to a black car parked quietly near the corner. Its polished surface reflected the rising sun. Daniel froze again, staring at it. He had never been inside a car like this. "Get in," the man instructed. Daniel slid into the passenger seat, the leather cool beneath his damp clothes. His stomach growled loudly in the silence. He lowered his head in embarrassment. The stranger glanced at him. "Hungry?" Daniel gave a weak nod. Without a word, the man reached into a small bag and handed him a wrapped sandwich. Daniel's hands shook as he unwrapped it, the warm smell filling the car. He ate slowly at first, then faster, like someone afraid it might be taken away. The man watched quietly, not judging, just observing. When Daniel finished, he finally spoke. "My name is Mr. Holly." Daniel wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Why? Why are you helping me?" Mr. Hale's eyes fixed on him. "Because I believe kindness deserves a chance to grow. What you did last night, giving away your only food, most men wouldn't do. That tells me something about you." Daniel frowned. "It was nothing. They were hungry. It was everything," Holly replied firmly. "I think you could be more than just a boy surviving on scraps." The car rolled forward, the city sliding past the windows. Daniel pressed his forehead against the cool glass, his mind racing. Was this real? Or some cruel trick? Holly continued, his tone calm but deliberate. I run a business. I need people I can trust. People with honesty, not greed. I'm offering you a chance. A place to stay. Food. Work. He paused, his voice tightening. You must promise me something. Daniel turned, cautious. What? Don't talk about what you see. Don't ask too many questions until I decide you're ready. Silence, Daniel. Will keep you safe. The words hung in the air like smoke. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He thought of the warehouse, the dripping roof, the nights of hunger. Then he looked at the man beside him, powerful, mysterious, dangerous perhaps, but offering hope. Do you accept? Holly asked, his eyes locked on Daniel's. Daniel swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. Yes. For the first time, Mr. Holly smiled. But there was something in that smile Daniel couldn't read. It wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was something else. Something that promised his life was about to enter a world he couldn't yet imagine. And deep down, Daniel felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. The car glided smoothly through the streets until the scenery began to change. The crowded markets and shabby buildings gave way to wide avenues lined with trees and tall offices. Daniel stared out the window in awe. He had never been to this part of the city before. It felt like another world, brighter, richer, unreachable. Mr. Holly said little, his hands steady on the wheel, his gaze forward. Daniel wanted to ask questions, where they were going, why him, what this business meant. But Hale's earlier words echoed in his mind. Don't talk about what you see. After nearly half an hour, the car pulled up to a gated property. The iron gates swung open as if someone had been expecting them. Daniel's mouth went dry as he saw the massive building ahead. It wasn't a house. It wasn't quite an office either. It was something in between modern glass walls, but surrounded by high fences, cameras blinking red at every corner. Come, Holly instructed as they stepped out. Inside, the air was cold, humming with the sound of unseen machines. A few men in dark suits moved briskly through the hallways, their eyes sharp. They didn't greet Daniel. Some barely hid their curiosity, glancing at the skinny boy in torn clothes walking beside their boss. Daniel felt smaller with every step. Finally, Holly led him into a room. It was plain, a long table, 2 chairs, a single lamp hanging above. In the center of the table sat a locked briefcase. Sit, Holly said. Daniel obeyed, his heart pounding. Holly remained standing, his tall figure casting a shadow across the room. This is your first test, Holly said evenly. I need to know if you can follow instructions. Daniel swallowed. What do you want me to do? Holly tapped the briefcase. You will sit here with this until I return. No matter what happens, no matter who comes in, no matter what they say, you do not open it. You do not speak of it. You understand. Daniel blinked, confused. That's it? Just sit? Hale's eyes narrowed. It is never just sit. It is about loyalty, obedience. Can I trust you when I'm not here? Daniel's throat tightened, but he nodded quickly. I understand. Holly studied him for a moment longer, then turned and left the room, the heavy door clicking shut behind him. Silence. Daniel stared at the briefcase, its metallic edges catching the light. What could be inside? Money? Documents? Something else? He clenched his fists, forcing his eyes away. Don't talk. Don't touch. Don't ask. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours. Then, without warning, the door creaked open. A man stepped in, not Holly, but one of the suited guards. He smirked at Daniel. You must be the new kid, the guard said casually. His eyes flicked to the briefcase. What did he leave you with? Daniel shifted uncomfortably. I can't say. The guard chuckled. Smart. But come on. You're hungry, aren't you? Tired? Don't you want to know what's inside? He stepped closer, his voice dropping. I'll make it worth your while. Just open it for a second. Holly doesn't have to know. Daniel's heart pounded. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The temptation was sharp, but so was the memory of Hale's warning. Silence will keep you safe. His hand trembled on the table. The guard's smirk widened, waiting. Daniel realized this was no accident. This was the test. Daniel's heart thudded so loudly, he was sure the guard could hear it. The man leaned against the table, eyes locked on him, voice smooth like a trap. Open it, just a glance. Holly won't know. Daniel's fingers twitched near the briefcase, the metal cold under his skin. His mind screamed with hunger and curiosity. What if it was food, money, a ticket out of this miserable life? His body begged him to take the chance. But then he remembered. The old couple's trembling hands, the taste of hunger gnawing at his belly last night, and Mr. Hale's voice, sharp and clear. Silence will keep you safe. Daniel pushed his chair back, forcing space between himself and the briefcase. No, he said firmly, his voice steadier than he felt. The guard raised an eyebrow. No? You really think Holly cares about you? You're nothing. Just another street rat. Daniel's chest tightened, but he held his ground. Maybe, but he trusted me. And I'm not going to break that. For a moment, the room went still. Then the guard's smirk faded, replaced by a cold, unreadable stare. He straightened and walked out without another word, the door clicking shut. Daniel sat alone again, heart racing. Had he just passed or failed? Minutes later, the door opened once more. This time, it was Holly. His sharp eyes scanned Daniel, then drifted to the untouched briefcase. A slow smile spread across his face. You didn't open it. Daniel shook his head quickly. You told me not to. Holly stepped closer, his gaze intense but approving. Good. Many would have. Most do. He tapped the briefcase lightly, then lifted it from the table with one hand. That was the test, Daniel. Trust, obedience. You passed. Relief washed over Daniel so strongly, he nearly collapsed back in his chair. Holly studied him for a long moment, then spoke with finality. You're not going back to that warehouse. From today, you'll live here. You'll work for me. I will give you food, shelter, and a future. But remember, silence isn't just about not talking. It's about knowing when to listen, when to wait, and when to act. Daniel swallowed hard, nodding. Holly placed a hand on his shoulder, firm but almost fatherly. You showed me last night that even with nothing, you can choose kindness. Today you showed me that even under pressure, you can choose loyalty. Those choices are why I chose you. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something stir inside him. Hope. Real hope. As they walked out of the room together, the hallways no longer felt so cold. The building no longer seemed like a prison. It was the beginning of something new, something unknown. Daniel glanced once more at the briefcase as Holly carried it away. He still didn't know what was inside, and maybe he never would.